As we heard from our guests earlier on, education is regarded as a key area for any nation's development. An educated population is able to run viable communities, participate meaningfully in the economy, and contribute to the broader human progress. With all its resources and celebrated constitution, education is still regarded as the Achilles heel of South Africa's human development. From poor infrastructure at schools, inappropriate curricula, morale of teachers, discipline of school children, South Africa lags substantially behind similar type nations. The unions are repeatedly blamed for the underperformance of our schooling system. But is this fair? The man who should know why we have these many issues is the General Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, Mr. Mugwena Maluleke, who's with me here. Dr. Maluleke, pleasure to catch up with you once again.
And indeed, thanks for having us today.
Well, I said you are somebody who should know about all these issues, but I want to hold you even much more accountable that now that you know, you must also propose solutions, right? But let me point out something that you have been appointed, elected Vice President of Education International, so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And tell me about the significance of this role. What does it mean?
The global responsibility that I have basically is to promote education as a public good. So we go around defending the education from privatization, from commercialization, in ensuring that each and every child globally has access to education, but also promoting the development of teachers as professionals in terms of the ILO and UNESCO recommendation that we have got to take care of the training of our teachers, highly qualified teachers with the highest professional standards. That's what we're promoting globally. So that is the role. But basically is to campaign strongly for education to be funded so that investment in early childhood development, in primary and higher education institution, in particular research, as a very important key to ensuring that sustainable development is achieved, in particular in our continent.
Now, the membership of this organization is very substantial, it appears. How many members make up Education International?
Well, more than 32 million teachers and education personnel from early childhood education to higher education institutions. So it is very substantial, and that's why we think that we have got an important role to play in the UNESCO, but also in the United Nations institution to ensuring that indeed there's funding, adequate funding for education, and that's what we're fighting for.
Well, as I've already congratulated you, somebody might say, but Mr. Maluleke is a Sadtu member. Do they know that? But anyway, are there any lessons that you draw from members of Education International that you believe South Africa can benefit from? I mean, you are there, you're the Vice President, we're happy to have you there, and we believe you'll bring back the lessons that you are learning.
Some of the lessons that we can draw from member organizations and member countries of Education International, clearly one, it is that they place the importance on the investment of education, in particular the environment. You know, infrastructure and the environment under which our children and our teachers are expected to perform is one of the most important area, and which investment is required for that. For example, to deal with discipline, basically you need to improve the environment under which the learners find themselves in a school, whether it is providing security, but also more importantly is to provide resources in the school. The children do not go to school to read books only. They have got to play, they have got to sing, they've got to do arts. So the lessons we are drawing is that countries are investing more on things that they know will drive the teachers and drive the learners to want to learn, and teachers to care for those particular learners and teach them. And therefore, this is one of the areas that we can draw lessons from. The other area is, you know, the commitment to really invest money in education and not invest money in political administration like we have in our country, that more money spent on the 11 ministers of education in a small population of 53 million people. Why do you have got 10 ministers of education?
Well, I suppose the health sector would say the same, actually, that when you have a problem and then it's blamed, it's put at the door of a provincial administration and so forth. But because you're involved, you are in the system, and you are learning from other people, just highlight a few problems that you contend with as teachers with our education system so we can have a better appreciation? Before I get to the Sadtu specific problems, what is wrong with the system?
Look, the system problem is systemic problem.
Yeah.
One, it is we are still grappling with decades and decades of apartheid education with underfunding. So we are still struggling to ensure that there is infrastructure for a rural child, for a township child. So that differences in terms of infrastructure and funding is still a problem that we need to attend to. We still deal with high classes in our education system. In other words, overcrowding. And some of the schools in Limpopo, in Eastern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, you have got 115, 60 children in a classroom. So these are the things that we have to contend with. Parental involvement, parental involvement. When you call a meeting, you expect the parents to come to school to support the principal and the teacher and hold them accountable. But if the parents are not going to be part of the community, part of the school problems and solution, you find that obviously we're going to lag behind forever, because when you compare to any other community or any country, we are lagging behind because of that. Maybe we need to find out why is it that parents are just saying, look, Maluleke, these are your children, you need to take care of them. So how do I deal with discipline when I need the parents to be part of that? But
you know, we go all over the place, I suppose, in South Africa when we talk about education. Right? Because we are under the impression that there's a lot of money that goes into education. It's the biggest ticket, the biggest item on our budget in South Africa. When you say it's underfunded, many South Africans would say, what are you talking about? I mean, 25% every year of the budget goes towards education. Why are we not able to provide adequate infrastructure and going to the extent of an NGO taking the government of the Eastern Cape to court, and the court having to instruct the government to provide that infrastructure? I mean, where do we miss the point?
We're missing the point as a country is that we are looking at the figure and we say it's 19-20% of the total expenditure of government, or maybe 5%. So heavily funded, one MEC in one province, 450 million for that, and
for just administration.
Yes, for administration. Yeah. So that money is not going to the teacher, it's not going to the learner. So yes, I agree, 20% of the budget is for education, but it is how we are allocating the money, how we are budgeting for our schools. Our budgeting system says that it's what you call equitable budgetary system. It's a wrong system, because it does not look at the school and say, in this school, this is what we need. There's no social capital for a school in Ramukopani, for example, because the parents are working in Rustenburg. So parents are not going to go back to home every evening or every weekend. They've got to go monthly. And therefore, that budget for the school is supposed to take into account whether teachers there need assistant teachers to assist the learners with homework, because learners are not going to do homework at all. You know, so the allocation is a problem.
I'm going to pick up the point of the involvement of parents and communities in the education of children, but I want to stay with infrastructure for a moment. Why the inconsistencies? Let's go back to the Eastern Cape, and then you compare to Gauteng, right? Where the government in Gauteng commits itself to opening a new school every month, all the time. And the same is not happening in the Eastern Cape, yet they receive similar amounts of money. Why would that be the case?
The problem is the equitable funding solution that they talk about. It's not equitable. Because if you look at the population of the Eastern Cape, the vastness of the Eastern Cape, that money spent more on other things than it is to be spent on infrastructure. The other problem in the Eastern Cape is wrong appointments in the Department of Education or the Department of Public Works. So wrong appointments, people have got no skills, and therefore they fight for tenders. And And that is the reality. It is that we delay utilizing the money that has been given to education for infrastructure to the extent that it's taken back to national treasury every year, because you can't use it, because you are still fighting whether the tender must be for Ntate Modise or for Ntate Maluleke, and therefore we only have...
So we've got a problem of tenders, to put it straight. So what would you
corruption.
say? Corruption, to just incompetence or corruption or both?
Both. Because when you appoint wrong people, because you want them to be able to listen to you to say this tender goes to so and so, that is corruption. And that is stealing from the poor in the Eastern Cape. So the equitable formula in the Eastern Cape is complicated by the fact that there's corruption, there's incompetency, but also it is that the vastness has not been taken into account. What type of a child are you having in a school in the Eastern Cape? Are parents not working in Marikana or working somewhere in Limpopo in the mines?
Well, you know, one could say we can have all the excuses we can come up with, but we must also come up with solutions. Mugwena Maluleke is the General Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, and I will be picking up a couple of issues that he's raised, the role of parents, for instance, in the education of children, and of course Sadtu itself has been blamed for a whole number of problems within the education system. Let's hear your views on Twitter and the hashtag #TheModise Network.